Hey guys, what's up? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be filming my June wrap-up. Can you believe that it's the end of June? Because I can. This month went by so fast. So, in the month of June, I read a total of 7 books, which is my lowest month of 2018 so far, which amounted to 2,364 pages. For the number of genres I read 2 contemporary fictions, and then 2 young adult contemporary fictions, 1 nonfiction, 1 sci-fi, and 1 new adult romance. So it was definitely a contemporary fiction month for me. So for list number of ratings, I had 2 5-star books, but one of them was a reread. I had 2 4-star books, 2 3-star books, and 1 1-star book. And then male versus female authors, I read 5 female authors and only 2 male authors this month. Let's jump right into this. So the first book I read this month was Wildflower by Drew Barrymore. I listened to the audiobook for this. It was really adorable and really funny, and I just love Drew Barrymore so much. Like, I love her. I love her voice. I love, like, she's always been in movies in my life. Her voice, when she was explaining some stories in this audiobook, like, she would, like, scream at the top of her lungs, and, like, oh my god, I was dying of laughter. Like, she's so funny. Like, she's hilarious. I will say, though, that the writing itself for this book isn't very good, and I guess I would have liked more of a constructive timeline in this book, because these stories were just kind of like all over the place. Like, one chapter would be about her childhood, and the next chapter would be about her being a mom, and then the next chapter would be about something random from her childhood, and then her teenagehood, and then momhood. It's just like, it was all over the place. Like, I would have liked a more constructive timeline if all of her stories could have gone in order. Just really enjoyed it, and I loved the stories from her childhood and from, like, being on the set of E.T. and, like, her relationship with Steven Spielberg. Like, I loved it so much. It was so cute. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. The second book I read this month was Tell Me Lies by Carola Lovering, and this was a finished copy sent to me by Atria Books for review. So this is about a girl named Lucy who moves from New York to California to go to college in California, and while she's there she meets this guy named Steven who's just not the best for her. He's like a really bad influence on her. This book was really boring, and I disliked all of the characters in this book. I just felt like Steven was like the typical douchebag character that like pressures Lucy into saying yes to things that she doesn't want to say yes to, and I don't think he was supposed to be liked. Like, I think the author intended for him to be a douchebag and for us to like hate him as readers, but like that doesn't make me like your book. Even if you intended to have a douchebag of a character, then like what is there to enjoy about this book? He literally, like, Steven, he thinks that he can fuck this girl Diana, who's his ex, and then this other girl named Nicole, who's like his fling for the summer, and then Lucy, our main character, who's like now his girlfriend. And he thinks he can like have all 3 of them at the same time, and it's like not a big deal. He tells Lucy to get on birth control because he hates wearing condoms, and like he literally quotes, "Girls are generally psychotic." Desperately wants to get back with his ex Diana throughout the majority of this book, and then when he does get with her, he's like, when you get what you want, it automatically decreases in value. Like, what the fuck, dude? Lucy isn't much better either, because all she cares about is trying cocaine with all of her friends and achieving a thigh gap. Like, I don't even know how many times she mentioned that she needed a thigh gap. Oh my god, all these characters are so superficial and so shallow. I was like banging my head against a wall while I was reading this, and I only got like 160 pages in before I DNF'd it and gave it 1 star, because fuck that shit. I'm not, like, no. So irritating to read this, so yeah. So the third book I read this month was A Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, and this is a new adult romance novel, and it is the first novel I've ever read by Penelope Douglas. So it follows this girl named Jordan who's 19 years old, and she's dating this guy named Cole who's also 19 years old. On her birthday, she meets this guy at the movie theater named Pike, who's 38 years old. She didn't know at the time that they met that this guy Pike is actually Cole's father. On the night that they meet at the movie theater, Cole gets arrested at the local police station, and so Pike gets a call to go pick him up, and then that's when Jordan realizes that, oh my god, this is Cole's dad. And so because of Cole's arrest, he's forced to move back into his dad's house, at Pike's house, and so he has to bring Jordan with him because they live together. And then we get this amazing forbidden sexual tension relationship between Jordan and Pike, because Cole is just like so, like, he's such a teenager, you know, like he's only 19, he's just very like doesn't really care about anything. Jordan is like really mature for her age, and she's very responsible and respectful, and she's just completely the opposite of Cole. Oh my god, this book was just so good. It was so good. If you didn't know, I have a thing for like forbidden relationships. That's like, I love reading about those the most because I love the like tension that forms between the characters, and I love it so much. And this was done so well in that sense. Like, this is one of my new like favorite forbidden romance stories. But I love Jordan as a main character. She was so like sassy and mature and just like on her shit. Like, she didn't take any shit from any of the guys in this book, which I loved. I loved Pike. Pike is like one of those guys who pretends to be all tough on the outside, but he's actually a total softie on the inside, which I love. Like, he's a construction worker and he has like sleeves of tattoos, and he, you know, is a single father raising Cole, and he's just trying to get his shit together, you know. But I adored him so much. It was a slow burn, but like in a good way. It really like built that tension, you know. And I just loved it so much. I can't wait to reread this. Like, I love Pike so much. He's like my new favorite fictional crush ever. So yeah, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year, definitely my favorite of the month. So good. The 4th book I read this month was Sleeping Giants. Isn't this cover just fucking beautiful? This is a sci-fi book. Follows this young girl at the time named Rose Franklin, who, she was a little girl riding her bike and she fell into this giant metal like hand that was buried underground, and she just like fell into it, and then she like didn't know what it was. So now it follows Rose Franklin 17 years later when she's a trained physicist, and she's gonna be like the lead researcher into discovering what the hell that giant hand was underground. Goes on to discover like all these other giant metal body parts underground that were buried here on Earth like long before we were here, like, and so it makes you wonder like what exactly was here before us and what could have possibly made these. But yeah, this book was really cool the way it was told, because it's all told in like interview clips and articles and diary entries and just like a bunch of random things. Like, it's not really told in a conventional story way, which I thought was really cool actually. I actually had like one of the coolest reading experiences I've ever had when I read this book, because I simultaneously listened to the audiobook while I was reading the physical book. So it was really cool. It was kind of like somebody was just narrating the book for me as I was reading it, which really helped because this book is pretty heavy sci-fi. Like, it's not too hardcore, but like I could definitely see this dragging if I was just trying to read it myself. And so the audiobook really helped me push through some of the heavy sci-fi parts, and the audiobook was entertaining as hell because there is a huge cast of characters in this book, and they have all these different voice actors on this audiobook, and like they really all give a performance. And it's really cool because some of these parts are like written from their point of view, like while they're discovering these things, and you can like, you feel like you're there with them, and it's like, it feels like a movie, but like you just get to visualize everything, you know. Like, it's really cool, really really cool. This is the first book in a trilogy, so I cannot wait to get to the next 2 books. But yeah, this book was just really intense and really eerie, and just makes you think like, what is possible, you know, and like what could have been on this planet before humans, and like what else is out there. Like, we don't really know. Loved it so much. And the plot twist at the end of this book, like, what the fuck? It was amazing. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And I can't wait to read the next book in this series. Oh my god. Right, the 5th book I read this month was Girl Made of Stars. This is a young adult contemporary story. It's about this teenage girl named Mara and her twin brother Owen, who gets accused of raping this girl, Hannah, who's his girlfriend and one of her best friends. This was a really sad and hard story to read at times for obvious reasons. I mean, I've never considered this point of view before of the sister of someone who gets accused of rape, because I can't even imagine being put in that situation. He's your brother and he's been in your life forever, and like you can never imagine him doing something so horrible, and then that's the reality that she has to deal with now. And it was very hard to like put myself in her shoes, and it was just really tragic. The writing style for this book was really gorgeous, and it had a lot of really great representation in this book because Mara is bisexual and her love interest Charlie is genderqueer. But yeah, this book definitely made me cry a few times. It was definitely like, whoa. And it's a very realistic look at rape culture, and especially in like teenagehood and how it affects everyone around you. Like, it doesn't just affect the person who was raped, like the victim and the rapist, it affects them, but it also affects just all the families involved, and just like just everyone, you know, and it's really sad. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was a punch to the emotional gut for sure. The 6th book I read this month was The Pisces by Melissa Broder. But yeah, this is a contemporary fiction novel, and it's about a woman named Lucy who falls in love with a merman. Like a mermaid, but a man. Honestly, this is one of the weirdest books I've ever read in my life. I wanted to read it because a lot of people were comparing it to The Shape of Water, like this whole idea of falling in love with like a underwater creature, and because this cover is so gorgeous, and some people were calling it like literary fiction, which I've been into lately, so I wanted to read it. I wanted to give it a shot, and oh my god, this book was so weird for like more reasons than one. And this book is mainly about Lucy moving to California to like watch her sister's diabetic dog and then trying to get laid all summer. Like that's what this book is mainly about, and then the whole merman thing doesn't really happen until like halfway through the book. The writing was really gorgeous at times, and then at other times the writing felt so awkward and clunky, and some of the scenes in this book made me feel so uncomfortable to read, like really uncomfortable, vivid descriptions of her doing things that I don't want to ever think about ever again. But like Lucy was like a very entertaining character, but at the same time she was kind of like selfish and rude and just kind of annoying, like I don't know. But yeah, I still don't really know how I feel about this book. Like there are some things in this book that I'm never gonna forget, but at the same time like it's just so mediocre, you know? And like I wanted more of the merman thing. Like there wasn't nearly enough of it for like them selling this book as like a merman book, you know? So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. After I finished The Pisces, I got into a really bad reading slump, and I read 50 pages of Station 11 and I couldn't get into it. Then I read 30 pages of the Book of Essie and I couldn't get into it. And then I read 70 pages of Undead Girl Gang, and I'm just not feeling that one either. So I just hit like rock bottom. I was in such a bad slump and I didn't know what to do, so I decided to reread a favorite because that is what gets me out of slumps the most. I reread Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I haven't read this book since the first time I read it in 2014. This book is a young adult contemporary book, and it follows this young man named Aristotle who lives in El Paso, Texas in the 1980s, and it's about his summer that he spends with this other boy named Dante who teaches him how to swim. And this book is heavily focused on family, and especially like Mexican family and like their traditions, you know, and life and growing up in general. Like this is definitely a coming of age story for Aristotle. I related to Aristotle so much when I was 15 years old because I really like struggled with my identity when I was 15, and I was always angry and like depressed, and I never really knew why. And so I completely related to his like anger at the world, even though he didn't really understand why he was always angry. And Dante is just such a warm and positive person. Like he just made me smile, and like he made my heart so happy the whole time I was reading this. Like he's just so sweet and like nice, and I agree with Aristotle when it's like you don't realize that people like Dante exist in the world, you know? God, this writing is just so gorgeous, and like this time that I read it, I really got to like annotate it because the first time I read it, it was long before I started annotating books, so it was really fun to go back and like annotate one of my favorite books of all time. Love Aristotle and Dante's characters so much. Their families are so fleshed out. I love both of their parents and their relationships, and it's like it's all complicated family issues, you know, but it's so deep. Obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars again. It's one of my all-time favorite books, so I want to try to reread this every couple of years because I just love it so much. That is the June wrap-up. That is all the books that I read in June, and I'm kind of disappointed that it was only 7 books just because that is my lowest amount of books that I've read so far this year, but I got in a bad slump, you know, and I was still finishing up my quarter this month, so it's kind of been a hectic quarter. Next month, I'm going to be leaving for California on July 1st, and I'm not coming back till the 14th, so I don't know how much I'm going to be reading while I'm in California. I'm going to try to read as much as I can like on my phone and stuff, but next month I'm expecting my wrap up to be kind of a low amount of books too, just because of my vacation. I'll have to see. I'm like really excited to read a lot of different books. I still have a July TBR video coming out on July 1st because I do have some books that I definitely want to be getting to in July. So thank you guys so much for watching as always. How many books did you read in June? What was your favorite book that you read in June? And if you've read any of these books that I mentioned in this video, let me know your thoughts on them, and if you agree or if you disagree, we can talk about it. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.